let's not waste any time. I want to dig into the first series in the second round, and it's going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. Just one note, actually, before we dig into the series. 7 of the 8 favorites moved on to the second round. The only favorite that did not move on was, of course, the Colorado Avalanche, who Scott and I picked to win the Stanley Cup. So I guess that's just how it goes. The only favorite that did not get through. Very chalky first round. But let's start things out with the Leafs and the Panthers. The Panthers are minus 175 favorites despite not having home ice advantage in this series. So, Scott, let's start with you. Will the Leafs finally get to the conference finals for the first time in the Matthews and Marner era? Or will they just be another victim of the Florida Panthers as they look to get back to the Stanley Cup final for the third year in a row?
Well, I'll be honest. I maybe didn't have the highest expectations of the Panthers going into their series against Tampa Bay. Like, I thought Tampa Bay was looking pretty good late in the season and would give them a real test. And then all of a sudden the playoffs started. And the Panthers looked like a championship team once again. And so based on what I saw in that series, Panthers had 6 players who had at least 5 points. So I really liked their depth. And they managed a relatively easy win with Matthew Tkachuk not playing a whole lot. He was playing fewer than 14 minutes per game. He played more than 18 minutes per game during the regular season. And if they can kind of make short work of Tampa Bay with one of their best players not at full strength, I like their chances coming into this round against the Maple Leafs. Now, Maple Leafs, I didn't think necessarily played that well at even strength against Ottawa, but the core 4 kind of rose to the occasion for them, right? Between Nylander, Marner, Matthews, Tavares, those guys led the way offensively, and I think that's kind of what the Leafs are going to require. They're going to need those guys to basically eliminate all the criticism that has been heaped upon them over the years for their playoff performances, and rise to the occasion against the defending champs. And if they could do that, well then, yeah, the Leafs, have a chance to go on. But, given the choice between, the Leafs shedding all their playoff history and the Panthers just kind of continuing on, I'm siding with the Panthers here.
All right, so Scott is backing the reigning Stanley Cup champions. And I should mention, Scott, you brought it up, Matthew Tkachuk, that's a player to watch out for here because he only played like around 13 minutes per game in round 1. We don't know how banged up he still is. And then the other, news and note to pass along, Aaron Ekblad is also going to be out game 1. He's serving the final game of his suspension for elbowing Brandon Hagel in round 1. Outside of that, it looks like these teams are fully healthy across the board, although we never know how injured any of these teams are. Just like Tampa Bay in round 1, where we found out afterwards that basically the entire team was injured. But Scott is rolling with the Panthers. Ben, who do you got, Leafs, Panthers?
So in looking at the breakdowns of these teams, I look at a few things that I know what I'm going to get from. The Florida forward group is loaded. There are a bunch of killers up there. I know they're going to get theirs. And now I view this Toronto defense core much the same way. They're built, they're big, they're heavy. They did a fantastic job against Ottawa in closing up the slot completely and keeping everything to the outside. And then when those shots came from the outside, they got in the way of them. It was very difficult to get stuff to the net. So in a way, those might cancel each other out to some degree. It'll be low scoring, tight. And to what Scott said, it comes down to the core 4. Will they be able to rise up and get theirs and carry the offensive load for the Leafs? Special teams is going to be massive. Florida was the most penalized team throughout the regular season, and then their penalty minutes per 60 actually went up against Tampa. So I think the discipline will be troubling for them, especially early in the series. Like against Ottawa, the Leafs will need to get a power play clicking early and often. I think having guys like Stolars, Ekman-Larsson, and who's the other guy, Lorentz, who were on that team last year, they'll be big in trying to helping crack this Florida team. All that said, though, I still can't go away from Florida and everything they've done. Hand up, I think, amongst all of us, too. I was beating the Tampa drum in round 1, too. But it was more of a question, was Florida playing possum when it came to their status, health, everybody? And, oh, yeah, they were. So, for me, it's going to be Florida. I'd take them at the price, minus 175. It's a little steep. If you want a little extra juice, I'd bet them to win in 6 games and get that at around plus 350 at Pinnacle.
All right, so you guys are both on the Florida Panthers. I know you guys probably think I'm going in the other direction in this series because I am a Leaf fan. And listen, I am happy that my Leafs knocked out Ben's Senators in round one. I mean, if the Leafs didn't win that series, my goodness. I mean, it was time to like fold the franchise. So thank goodness they moved on to the second round. I'm having trouble here because my heart wants one thing, but my head is telling me another thing. I think this series is very simple. The Florida Panthers are an elite 5-on-5 team. If they are disciplined, they stay out of the penalty box, it's going to be very difficult for the Leafs to beat this team at 5-on-5 over the course of a 7-game series. The Leafs all season, they've been getting away with having elite goaltending, very efficient scoring, and relying on their power play. This Florida team is one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the league, and I think if they keep this series mostly at 5-on-5, they're going to have a very good chance of beating the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's where I'm at here. I think the Leafs, in order to win this series, they need Anthony Stolarz to outplay Sergei Bobrovsky. And both goalies, believe it or not, had identical stats in round one when it comes to save percentage and goals against. In terms of goals saved above expected, Bobrovsky was a little bit better than Stolarz in round one, but the Leafs are going to need Stolarz to outplay him. They are going to need their power play to operate at around the same clip as it did in round one. Their power play was great against the Senators, operating at around 35%, and they're obviously going to need the big boys to step up, the core four. If that does not happen, I think Toronto's in a very tough spot here. I think the game plan for Florida is going to be, let's shut down the Matthews and Marner line. Let's force the Leafs for any of their other three lines to try to beat us at 5-on-5. Florida, we know their formula. They are suffocating. It's so tight checking. They take away time and space. It's going to be very difficult for the Leafs, I think, to generate offense here at 5-on-5. So as much as I want the Leafs to move on here, I also have a very difficult time picking against Florida. I think Florida is going to win this series. I don't love the minus 175 price. I think it's priced pretty much right where it should be. You know what? The only saving grace, I guess, for the Leafs in this spot is that they have home ice advantage. Like, they are home underdogs. They won the division. This is still a good team, but it is scary that Florida was able to flip a switch like they did in round one. So I'm going to be on the Florida Panthers here. And like Ben, I actually am going to place a bet on them to win in 6 as well. And you can get that at plus 350 at Pinnacle. All right, so we're all on the Florida Panthers, which means that the Leafs are finally going to go to the conference finals for the first time in the Matthews, Marner, and Nylander era.